Joel Pizzini. I do the winemaking for our family winery. Pizzini Wines was established about as a winery about 15 odd years ago, and prior to that we were involved in grape growing. So we've been involved in the industry for the past 30 years, initially growing grapes for Brown Brothers. Well, the winemaking philosophy, I guess, is I'm making wines that aren't fruit driven. There's trying to make wines that there's complexity through them, and there's layers of complexity and layers of flavour, just to give the wine a little bit more depth and a little bit more interest, and also being different. Trying to make wines that are different and wines that you won't necessarily find in every sort of nook and cranny, or styles that everybody else is making. So trying to make more savoury, more earthy, bringing back a little bit of funkiness into the wines, and just generally making them a little bit more interesting, as opposed to them being really fruit driven and really jammy and rich. For me, the main things I love about winemaking is that it involves all of your senses, your sight, your smell and your taste, and your touch and you've got the opportunity to make quite a big difference and influences to the flavours and the smells of your wine. So that's what I really love about that. The Rubacuori and the Coronamento are our two flagship wines, and they're situated in our top two vineyards. In our leading vineyard of Sangiovese, that one patch of the vineyard, because it's a 10-acre vineyard and it sort of spreads over two sides of a hill, it sort of comes down basically like that. And on this side of the hill, the soil is a little bit hungrier and less fertile. So the vines naturally produce lower yield, naturally produce berries that are quite small and smaller bunches, and just naturally has a nice foliage that sort of allows the perfect amount of light to sort of penetrate to gain maturity. So the Rubacuori, the Sangiovese, it's hand-picked from this small sort of section of the vineyard, which is about an acre to two acres, and then it's crushed and destemmed, and then it's fermented in a big oak barrel, essentially. It's about 5,000 litres in capacity, and then it sort of ferments at quite a hot temperature, about between 28 and 30 degrees, and that helps to extract everything that we can out of those berries, but it also blows off some of the fruit-driven characters of the grapes. Then it stays in contact with skins for about 3 weeks, and then I just let the fermented drain, so I don't upset any of the skins inside the vat, and just collecting just the nice fresh free run. So it's just the cuvee that goes into the Rubacuori, and then it stays in barrels for about 18 months, and it's about 80% new oak, more or less, and then in bottle for a further 2 or 3 years after that. And the Coronamento, which it also comes from our leading vineyards of Nebbiolo. The focus is a little bit stronger regarding that wine because we just select the perfect vines. So Dad and I will go through the vineyard and select out the vines that have just got one bunch per cane, and they must be on a cane that is completely brown and lignified from the bottom to the top. So carefully selecting through this vineyard and just marking on the ground with the spray paint what vine that we want to pick from, making sure it hasn't had too much sun exposure, because the ultraviolet lights destroys the flavour compounds, and Nebbiolo has a thin skin and is a little bit susceptible to sunburn and damage. So we make sure that it has at least one leaf covering. So that's a bit of a juggling act, because you need to have the filtered light through the canopy, but you don't really want to have direct sunlight on the bunches. So exposure is quite important. And then we handpick those, and I take the heads out of 300 litre barrels. And so basically turning a barrel upside down, take the head out of it, and then pour the grapes in, and sort of do all of my plunging by hand. And using gravity wherever I can, so trying to minimise the usage of pumps. And the Nebbiolo stays in barrels for about 2 years, and then another sort of 2-3 years in bottle before it is released.